Hi guys. I don't really know what they've told about me in my introduction. I couldn't hear it outside. So I'm just going to continue with it once more because I'm extremely self-obsessed. So I'm currently a casting director. I wasn't born one. But I was born a lot of things. I mean, one male, but obviously, tried to be a lot of things all my life. And so I wanted to be a journalist when I was studying mass comm. Before that entire disaster period happened, which was called engineering. Really sorry to be talking about that here in this space, but it was a disaster for me. And back then, there were just two things that people wanted next to your name, before your name rather, which was an ER or a DR, There was nothing else apart from that. You either had to be an engineer or had to be a doctor or die in the middle, somewhere. Because you're nalayak if you're not doing that. I tried my hand at it, appeared for my IIT JEE pre's and everything. Miserable. That was death. Always wanted to do something with languages because I was very, very comfortable with that, be it Hindi, be it English, be it French. So I pursued mass comm, I just took up journalism and wanted to be, the Rajdeep Sardesais and the Barkha Dutts of the world, suddenly ki ab to desh badlenge. Went to cover one murder scene, and I have shared bricks. I said, nahi badalna hai, let's get back to something which is more simpler, Suddenly changed. Got into advertising, stuck around for a while, about 7 years in advertising but within advertising kept changing. Those were the days when, when your resumes had to be consistent. There was this word called consistent, ki ek hi resume pe, continue for 8 years, even if you're facing death and, misery. I would change every year. Just didn't like the brands I was working on, just didn't like the people. I used to get bored of people in a particular confined space. I said, I can't deal with them anymore. I need a change of face. Moved on and on and on, and suddenly one day somebody said, and I questioned, I said, what is happening? Why is this a pattern, suddenly with me, I'm not being consistent. What am I doing wrong? Someone said, follow your passion. So beautifully said. Like with all the intonation in the word, follow your passion. Find your passion. I was like, kahan milta hai? I never had a passion, And follow your passion became the most lousy advice I had ever received in my life. It still is. I lack passion. I have no passion. I don't know what passion means, Like each day, you get up and you're like, I'm going to be passionate today. What is the meaning of that word? There is passionate in the bed. Then you are passionate in your day. Then you are passionate at work. But is your passion your work? That is my biggest point. That, you could be enjoying your work, but that might not be your passion. I am a casting director today, and casting is not my passion. Like, I'm sorry, and I really don't know where I'm going to be, 5 years down the line when people say, probably my passion is to stay alive. Because then I know that I will do something of myself, I'll make something of myself. Now, this also comes from a childhood perspective, Very lucky, very, very lucky, very fortunate to be born in a family where the parents were quite naive. Half the time they didn't understand what I want to do, so they just let me do it. I would come up with things like etymology seekhna hai. And my dad would be like, what does that mean? Just do it. So half the times it was, I was led to do things because my parents couldn't figure out what I was trying to do. So every summer vacation I would pick up a new thing, a new hobby, a new interest, and call it my passion. So candle making became a passion when I was in class 6. One day the wax fell on my thumb, and that passion was over. I said, I'm not getting burnt in my passion. This is not the life I want to live. This wasn't the plan. One day I've started stitching. I've started doing embroidery one day. The needle poked in my thigh. It just went straight in, and I said, just get this thing out of my sight. I just realized that, these needles and these, it had to go wrong when I'm doing this. So, needles weren't passion, wax wasn't passion. Embroidery wasn't passion, they were interests, you know. They were my interests that I called passion. And I think a lot of us right now are misconstruing the word passion. You know, it's so easy and it's such a free advice. It's so said so simply, follow your passion. I love that how much passion one person puts in saying this line, you know, the 3 words. That's the biggest passion people have right now, just to say, follow your passion. And I'm like, what is that? You know, they just assume, one, that you have a passion. You might not have a passion, so how do you follow that? What is my passion? You know, I've never been able to figure that out. I've always been, but that doesn't mean that I've been directionless, you know. Because what I realized was, you know, it was okay, even as a kid, you know, when I would be sand painting one day and, you know, just making my entire house back in Lucknow like a beach. There was just sand all over because I wanted to make a Ganpati out of sand. And my mother would be like, what is he up to? But I just kind of realized that it's okay. You know, it's okay not to know what ignites your heart, you know, at times. It's okay not to know, you know, what emotions drive you. Life's not an exam. You know what I mean? There is no one solution to anything. You know, there could be multiple solutions to everything. Now, my point is, you know, goals are nice. You know, you can have goals, but you cannot confuse your goals for your passion. You know what I mean? When you go to play football, imagine this coming from a person who's never even entered a field, but I'm just still going to like quote that. When you play football, you know, your passion would be football. But your purpose would be to win that game, you know, and that will happen through multiple goals, not just one goal. Ki ek maar diya, chalo, chalo, done. I'm done. Yaar, ek to I've just like goal. I've just struck a goal. So, you know, life's too short. Now I'll tell you. Now, then when I started growing up, I realized that I'm circumstantially passionate. Like my passion changes with circumstances. When I was back in Lucknow, there was a different passion, you know, कि लखनऊ का सबसे बड़ा journalist बनूंगा, लिखूंगा. When I moved to Delhi, it went on to another level. When I moved to Bombay, I joined advertising and I realized that this is my passion. Got to be the CEO of one of the biggest advertising agencies, and that will be it. Chilling near Marine Drive and 2611 happens that night. So close to it, you know, right there when things were happening. And we were celebrating an award ceremony in advertising, and we were like reveling in our glory because we had like kind of, it was a clean sweep for that agency. 5 minutes it didn't take to, you know, mar and kill your entire idea of your passion. You know, 5 minutes more there, your passion would be down in, you know, it'll be up Kasab's sleeve somewhere. You know, your passion of becoming the CEO. That's when I realized, you know, that it doesn't make sense, you know. To just keep on chasing something so big in life that you kind of close all your doors and windows what come in the process towards it, you know. That's when I realized that I need to follow my purpose. You know, a word which is, you know, used quite in a very mean way, you know, that you're doing this purposely, you know, this is this. But purpose is so important, you know. You can set out every day with a purpose, you know, but not with a passion, maybe. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. I mean, your timelines might differ with somebody else, you know. My best friend's here, and she used to keep telling me, you know, that what is your resume looking like? There are, you know, 15 companies in 2 pages. Like, what are you doing with this? But I got a raise with every new company that I joined. I got a designation raise with every new company I joined, and I was enjoying it, you know. And then one day, I reached my tipping point. वो कहते हैं ना, घड़ा भर जाता है. And I moved to casting. I moved to photography rather. I mean, I've done so much that I don't even remember what all have I done. Circumstantially passionate or just interested, plain interested. Life to me was too short, you know, always. It still is, you know. When I was a kid, I was constantly told, mote ho, mar jaoge. You know, patle ho jao, nahi to bahut jaldi mar jaoge. You know, you have very limited days because you're fat. It kind of like got into I did not do anything about it because obviously I wasn't passionate about myself even. I wasn't passionate. I wasn't passionate about my health. If I was passionate, the first thing that I would have worked upon was myself. You know, your passion cannot arise without you knowing yourself in the first place. So you can go on belting this advice to people, you know, follow your passion and find your passion. Where do you get it? What market sells passion? You know, it's just, we are just misusing this term every day. Now, let me come to something that I have Why am I speaking about this? Why am I saying that you might lose out on a lot of journey, your moments in your journey while achieving your passion, because you're only following a passion. This is not preachy, by the way. This is something that I live. Okay, this is not meant for any one of you. This is something that I experience every day, and how it has helped me being a happy person. At the end of the day, I'm just happy. Each day I wake up and I go to my work, very happy about it. A lot of actors come to me. Now, this is a clan of humans which is the most vulnerable on the planet. They obviously, I'm sorry to all the engineers here, but they are actually doing the most difficult job on this planet every day. To live a day in the life of an actor is so difficult currently, because there is no training that you need. I mean, obviously you need, but then people think that you don't need training. So anybody is coming to be an actor, and I meet 50 such people every day, 50 aspiring, hopeful, some really talented, some absolute goofballs who just come and think they'd be actors because body to banai li hai, whey protein zindabad. And they come to me and they say, bachpan se hi mujhe acting ka bahut keeda tha. I'm like, what? ये बचपन से ही मुझे एक्टिंग का बहुत पैशन था. पैशन. I'm like, अगर इतना ही पैशन था बचपन से, तो अब तक क्या कर रहे थे आप? My point is, they try to tell me that they were interested in acting, because what they've done is they've done their engineering, they've done their MBA, they've gotten married, they've now settled their kids, and now they're here to pursue acting. You can't confuse your pursuit as your passion. It's very amusing at times. You meet them and they're like, हम बचपन से ये करना चाहते थे. Very nice. Cinema मेरा passion है. Very nice. Who was Satyajit Ray? There's silence, And I don't know everything about cinema. It's humanly impossible for anybody to know everything about everything. You know what I mean? But when you come and tell me that it's your passion, you've got to know this. You've got to work towards your passion. You've got to cultivate it. You've got to hone it. You've got to nurture it, for years and years altogether. But my point is, in today's time, when a fashion designer is preparing to be a fashion designer for all these years, there's a girl from Delhi who wears 5 clothes, hashtags it OOTD, and becomes a fashion influencer on Instagram. And then it's a job. It is actually a job these days. Influencer is a job. They get paid for it. What did that fashion designer do all this while? Suddenly you're looking at them and you're like, ye kal ki aayi hui ladki, you know what I mean? That kind of a thing. There are so many opportunities right now. We're in 2019, we are not in 1985 anymore. Where you could think about a passion, you can walk around with like a horse with blinders and just go unidirectionally following your thing. It is not possible right now, particularly in our field, in our industry, where you could be anything if you talk well, you could be anything if you look well, you could be anything if you write well, it is so full of opportunities right now. My point is, I will never want to shut my opportunities by being passionate, but I would really want to work towards a passion by being purposeful every day. Again, I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat this word purpose, because purpose is passion with boundaries, Purpose is passion with reality. Purpose is something that you need to go and pursue every day and come out really happy, because either you fulfill that or you haven't. Rather than giving your entire life to something and then realizing that it's not working out for me, and then coming back hurt, broken, slitting your veins. So many things happen, and it is not a happy feeling. I'm obviously losing context because it's 34 minutes now. What else? Yeah, it's, it's just kind of low. I can go on and on about it because, I don't feel like that, and I'm sorry, I'm sure there are a lot of people with a lot of passion here. A lot of engineers who are pursuing engineering here might love cooking. But what is your passion? Is cooking your passion or engineering your passion, And there are so many people who come to me who are engineers. Obviously, engineers are the most of the people are engineers who are actors today, And they'll come, and believe you me, that knowledge that you've gained as an engineer, the knowledge that I gained while preparing for my IIT JEEs, I still haven't forgotten that. Nobody can take that knowledge away from you, whatever you've done. Today, I'm able to decipher an advertising script and figure out what the human insight or the consumer insight would be, because I've done that at a point in time. So everything that you do in this life will help you sometime or the other. Nothing will be taken away from you in terms of your education, Like something, I'll tell you a very realistic thing. I wanted to study in NYU. And at that point in time, when I just completed my mass communication and journalism, that was my passion. NYU jana hai. Kisi bhi tarah se. And I gave my heart and blood and soul and sweat into it, and everything happened. And suddenly I thought that I would get the scholarship that I needed. I did not. My passion broke. Suddenly, immediately. In my head, what was my passion? It's a very subjective thing. And after that, I realized that, that I forgot the purpose of educating myself. I did not figure out that I need to educate myself, be it anywhere, I wanted to study integrated marketing. I could have done that in any other college. But I did not pursue education at all because my passion couldn't be completed. And that is where you falter, and that is what I think is such a heartbreaking thing to do to yourself, because you were just looking at the bigger picture. You were just thinking about the I in you and not keeping the world around you. You did not think about anything else, you were just only thinking about I, and when that I could not reach that particular step, you've broken into multiple I's. And now you're making wrong decisions. You're now making wrong choices. Who is to be blamed? Just you. Nobody forced it upon you. So, I don't know where I am, in terms of time, but anyway, so that was my deal. Follow your passion is a very, very utopic, very, it comes with a lot of struggle. I wouldn't want to call struggle upon myself ever. My deal is, if you can manage a happy life, why call struggle upon yourself? There are people who come to me and they say, hi, I'm a struggler. I'm like, how do you enjoy that? How does your heart allow to say that, in the first place? Everybody is a struggler then. Everybody, particularly in this city, is a struggler. Just that actors' ka struggle comes out, in the stories, in articles and everything. And that is why they come and start, they have their Facebook profile saying struggling artist. I'm like, great, this is what you were growing up to be all your life. You were always a struggler, and that is why you proudly tell the other world that you're a struggler. There's no harm in that, but don't behave like one. Do not feel like one. Because when you say that, you become that. My point is, you could be a fighter, because everybody in the city is struggling. Everybody, in every field. I've been across professions, I've been across companies and across corporates. We were all struggling in our own way. Just that, actors feel that it's a very proud thing to say that, I'm a struggler. Don't do that. Don't call struggle upon yourself, because it's a choice you made, and you need to be very proud about it. You need to be very proud of the fact that you've chosen the most difficult profession right now, It is the most difficult profession. And you will only be proud when you chase your purpose, You'll only be proud when you chase the meaning that you find in everyday life. So yes, guys, follow your passion is humbug. To me, again, I will just want to say that it's all about me right now, I'm just talking about my experience. I was told that you've got to be talking about your experience. So you guys, please follow your passion. But my point is with reality. Don't let your emotions and your thinking get over your mind all the time. Be real about stuff, Do not just go on a wild goose chase thinking, that this is what I need, and then just lose all your feathers in the process, You'd not be able to do that. So yeah, let's find our purpose every day. Let's go out and achieve it. And believe me, you will sleep a very happy person and wake up a very passionate person. Not because what you've done last night, but otherwise, you'll just be passionate. Thank you so much, guys.